watching TVC Breakfast. A non-governmental organization is calling on health authorities to subsidize sanitary pads in order to promote good menstrual hygiene among girls and women in the country.
Abiola Sholanke reports.
Poor menstrual hygiene and unlimited access to hygienic products undermine the educational opportunities, health and overall social status of females around the world. The target here is to create a world in which every woman and girl is empowered to manage her menstruation hygienically and with confidence. This project seeks to create awareness and highlights the importance of good menstrual hygiene management.
Menstruation is not a sickness, it's not a disease. It's part of womanhood, and it's important that we inculcate this in the girl child, that it's not something to be embarrassed of. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something to hide from. You know, it's something they need to understand and they need to manage.
They noted that government and donors should intervene in subsidizing sanitary pads so as to prevent serious health implications, just they have done in giving out free condoms to sexually active people to guide against sexual transmitted diseases.
People always run after the fact that there must be food in IDP camps, so they take rice, take all the foodstuffs there. But they must also place value on menstrual hygiene, that women need to take care of themselves at least 5, 6, 7 days in a month for these things. So they should, as they are doing their best to ensure that the life in IDP camps is okay, add sanitary pads, towels to the things they take there for people to use.
And the children are more enlightened by this new awareness.
Like during menstruation, we should keep our pads for 3 to 4 hours. And I also learned that we should keep our body clean during menstruation.
How to be careful when doing menstruation and how to read menstruation cycles.
This advocate believes that subsidizing sanitary pads will be a great respite to less privileged and vulnerable women, as choices of menstrual hygiene materials are often limited by cost and availability. Abiola Sholanke, TVC News, Lagos.
Well, joining me now is menstrual hygiene advocate Betty Abba. Betty Abba, good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Eid al-Fitr.
Same to you.
All right, before we get into the issues of subsidizing the sanitary pads, the first thing is the fact that most adolescents are not prepared for puberty. And the question now is, are we having enough conversations when it comes to the issues that has to do with menstruation and menstrual hygiene?
Yes, if you look back at the news report we just heard, we just viewed on our recent conference to mark the Menstrual Hygiene Day. We discovered that many millions of girls around Nigeria, around the world, are not really prepared to grapple with the challenges of menstrual hygiene management and all of that. And that has to do with the culture of silence surrounding menstrual hygiene management. So that's actually the essence of the International Menstrual Hygiene Day, May 28th every year, that tries to highlight the challenges that women go through, but first and foremost to break the silence around menstrual hygiene, because it's something that's regarded as a taboo topic, but it should not, because this is something that affects millions of women around the world.
But so far the year that day is being recognized and celebrated yearly. How would you evaluate how much impact it has had on breaking the culture of silence?
This is just the 5th year, so we can't say for sure exactly how much impact it has had. But the fact that people are talking about this issue, before now it's something that was a hush-hush topic. Even mothers found it extremely difficult to discuss it with their own daughters who are growing up to face the challenges, who are growing up to be able to grapple with their monthly challenge as far as their reproductive age years are concerned. And so I think a lot has been done, but we cannot say for sure how much has been done. Especially because this is just the 5th year. But the fact is that it's coming into light, the fact that many millions of women are finding it extremely difficult. We're having increasing number of conflicts around the world. Women in IDP camps, women fleeing conflicts. I will have to say in mountains, in the forest for days. And you know, their period will not say, okay, because you are in this kind of situation, we're going to delay. And also the fact that there's an international economic downturn. Families are finding it extremely difficult to cope with. providing sanitary products for their daughters, and women for themselves or for their daughters. And this is something they will have to deal with. This is something they cannot escape from. And so there's a lot of conversation around how can we reduce the prices of sanitary products, because they're actually skyrocketing. How can women access it more readily?
On the one hand, we have the economic situation, and on the other hand, this is something that people need. So, first of all, would subsidizing the rate of sanitary pad really ensure menstrual hygiene?
Yes, because the question is not as if women cannot take care of themselves. The question is access to the products. And because the prices are going up every day, and because actually many women and girls cannot even afford it. There are cases where girls have to go into contractual sex so as to be able to afford it, and in the process, many of them are infected. So if the taxes are reduced or even completely removed, the prices will actually fall, and then women and girls will be able to access it. And then we're also talking about initiating policies, facilitating policies where schools in poor neighborhoods will be able to access, girls in schools in poor neighborhoods will be able to access these products because they'll be provided free of charge. This is being done in Uganda, in many parts of Scotland and other places. And we believe that it can be a reality in Nigeria. We're facing a national economic downturn, and this is impacting so much on families. And menstrual hygiene management is one of the outcomes, one of the fallouts. People are finding it extremely difficult to cope. You have to, imagine if you have 4 daughters, you have to purchase this thing for them every single month, except you want them to just go wayward and look for the money to purchase these things in other ways that are not really right. And so this is a challenge that we must face. This is something that government, non-governmental organizations, individuals, other stakeholders will have to start a national discourse, a national conversation
to this.
Because this is something we have to grapple with. Women need more access to menstrual hygiene products.
Thank you so much, Betty Abba, for your time on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you.
In fact, when it comes to that, we expect that government should provide some of these things
free of charge,
especially at the level of secondary schools. Joining me now is a medical doctor and member of the Medical Women Association of Nigeria, Dr. Elizabeth Peters. It's nice to have you join me right now.
Nice to be here, thank you.
Now, when we talk about the issue of sanitary pads and all of that, on World AIDS Day, we see people share, organizations share free condoms to people all over the place. But we've not really seen where sanitary pads are shared free of charge and all of that. But let us come back even to the issue of hygiene. What should be the first things that one should know about hygiene during the menstrual cycle?
Okay, thank you for this question. So menstrual health hygiene is needed because women need to know the levels at which their bodies work. So if you wear a pad, the most common use for menstrual hygiene is pads, sanitary pads. They need to change them frequently. The average time should be between 4 and 6 hours is the maximum time you should have a pad on at one time and change it once it's soaked. You don't have to wait until it's soaked on. But the issue people don't know is that they try to extend it as long as possible, like 12 hours, and that's when it's infected to their bodies. The pads are made with chemicals to keep in the scent, the stench, and the blood. And blood is practically clotted blood, old blood. But in the case where you keep it on for so long, it causes you more harm than good. So women need to know that to change their pads as frequently as possible, which is at least maximum every 6 hours.
What can make anyone want to extend the period of time we should use pads?
It's finances. People can't afford these pads. It may be cheap to the so-called average Nigerian, but there are many people that are below average and they can't afford the pack of pads. So they want to extend each one to its maximum time, but they extend it to twice the maximum time, going to 12 hours and plus, and that's a hurry to them.
At what age should parents start this conversation of making their, because I believe that is where it should even start from, before anyone in school or in the church or mosque or any secondary person, come in contact with educating the children. At what age should mothers and parents start this conversation?
So the age of menarche, which is the beginning of periods, is getting younger and younger. Now the average is around 11 years old. So before then, a woman should talk to her daughter, or an auntie talk to any senior figure to the daughter should be spoken about. This is what happens. This is a period. It comes once a month, Averagely, it lasts about 3 to 5 days, and it may cause you pain. This is what happens during the period. This is how to take care of your body during the period. It should be a common knowledge. You shouldn't be waiting to find out in school, in boarding houses, and being surprised that you're bleeding and not knowing what's happening to your body. So women need to talk to their daughters, women and men. It doesn't have to be with mothers only. Yeah. Tell these girls what this means. It's not a disease. It's not something to be ashamed about. It's a normal process which everyone should go through.
That's what makes you normal and very normal and very complete as well. Exactly. Thank you very much, Dr. Elizabeth Peters, for giving us that enlightenment there. Thank you. Right. All right, joining us now is a women and children's rights activist, Betty Abba, here in the studio. It's nice to see you.
I'm happy to be back again.
Yeah, it's good to see you, really.
And we also have in the studio a doctor and member of the Medical Women Association of Nigeria, Dr. Elizabeth Peters. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's really nice to have both of you.
Indeed.
All right, let me start with you, Betty. When it comes to the issue of free sanitary pad or affordable sanitary pad, can you let us understand what's the cost of what the sanitary pad are now? What is really recommended? Can we, try to put some figures around there?
I think that for a start, we should be pushing for reduction in taxes or total removal of taxes so that people can access the products, because some are expensive, as costly as 400 naira, 800 naira for a pack, 1,200 depending on the flow. And so then finally, we should also be targeting when we can get to the point of making it free. In Scotland, sanitary pads are already free in public places, in schools. This is something that is, in Uganda, it's free in schools, especially in rural areas. And this is something that is achievable, because I believe that access to sanitary products should be a human right.
If we have to start right now, at what rate should we peg the price right now?
Maybe 200 naira, 150 naira or less.
Okay.
And then in schools, in neighborhoods, in communities that are really, really impoverished, I think government should take the step of actually providing these things.
Making it free of charge for
All
students. Right, let's bring Dr. Elizabeth in now. For you, at the heart of menstrual hygiene, is the cost or access to sanitary pad the main issue?
I would say it is. I would say that because it's the center. If there was cheaper access or complete access, women would not need to extend the use of the pad. And then there wouldn't be the issue of getting infections from keeping the pad up for too long. So if women could afford to get enough pads, they would know that they know, people do know that it's meant to be changed every so often. But because they can't afford to change it, they keep it on. And then we have complications that leads to gynecological issues. So if you could get the cost down, they can afford to change it every 6 hours, we'll be at a much better place.
But how about persons who do not even understand that these are the things they're supposed to do, education in the aspect of menstrual hygiene?
Exactly, that's another case entirely. People that have no idea. There are communities in Africa where they sit in the mud pit for the whole 5 days. They just believe that it's a crime, it's a punishment to be a woman to have this situation. So we need to educate these people. It is normal to have a menstrual cycle. It is your normal productive right to have this period in your life and just do it. But if people are not aware of these factors, they start to do things thinking that it's a disease of some form, and then they have the bad idea. So yes, education is needed to help to clear the ideas around menstrual health.
Education. Let me talk about the issue of roles, Betty, here. The point there is for the guys. Because, okay, when it comes to menstrual issues, guys see sometimes, many guys see it as the woman thing, which is actually found among women. But I like to bring the men in here. Men have wives, they have daughters, they have girlfriends and all of that. What role do they play or should they play in that concerted effort that you have stood for?
I think like Dr. Elia mentioned, there is the issue of sensitization. People need to be educated to know, first of all, that this is not a taboo, that menstruation is a natural phenomenon. It's part of the reproductive cycle of a woman and girls. And so we have to first of all remove the taboo cover over menstruation, the issue of menstruation. And families, whether men, women, fathers, the male counterparts or male relatives, have to be cooperative. They need a lot of cooperation.
And support.
But then, and support. But in the first instance, first of all, they have to be sensitized because you don't, you only act out of knowledge, out of the information that you have. Growing up in Benue State, back home in Otukpo, there's this bucket, we call it women's bucket.
Okay.
I've talked about it on a number of platforms, and then nobody goes near it. It's somewhere hidden at the back of the house. It was later in life I got to know that it has to even do with menstruation, and our mothers who were in the house and all of that. Once anything drops into that bucket, that's the end. It's discarded. It's called women's bucket. I never really thought about it.
Wow.
So that goes to show the kind of stigma, the kind of taboo or tabooness, if I'm allowed to use that, that's attached to menstruation and women and menstruation and all of that. And we have to break that circle. We have to break that silence.
We have to break it. We have to break it. We have to break it. Free sanity pads.
Yeah.
Free sanity pads. Yeah, free sanity.
You should have carried placards.
Yeah, no, in fact, we are ready for placards, and then we'll start from
But it's
somewhere.
really, really good that there's a general global conversation around this.
Yes,
now.
exactly.
And it's
That's
very, very
what we have to
necessary.
keep on the front burner.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Betty Abba, for
Thank
coming on the
you.
program.
And thank you, Dr. Elizabeth Peters, for your time. on TVC
So
Breakfast.
if we're leaving with anything, is free sanitary pads that we'll start the look out, watch out, watch this space for that. There'll be hashtag free sanitary pads very soon. All right, let's remind